All right. Hello, everybody. So today I wanted to hop on here and talk about relationships and more specifically the concept of the nice guy and the bad guy. These are just metaphors or examples of people when it comes to relationships. But before we do that, I think it's really good. I do breath work, right? It's one of the main medicines I share with others. And so if we can use some breath work to kind of tap in, create alignment, and kind of open up our channel. What I mean by that, open up the channels, like clearing the space, getting out of our own way, out of our head, so we connect to our body, the soma, which is our body, and the head, which is the psyche. We want to create a bridge between these two spaces, these two worlds, right? So we have this bridge so they can communicate back and forth because our body holds so much intelligence, as does the mind. But keep in mind that the mind can only predict the future based out of the past. And so when we talk about relationships, it's easy to get heady, right? We get in our minds about the relationship. And the reason we do that is because a lot of us have lost our intuition along the way. And that happens because, a simple example is, let's say you're in a relationship, and then one day that relationship um, goes south. Your partner leaves you. You thought you guys were madly in love, everything's going great. And then they leave the relationship, they abandon the relationship. And so it leaves you with this broken heart, with this core wound, right? And when that happens, the message we often send to ourselves is, I can no longer trust myself. We can no longer trust ourselves because we feel like, something was wrong with our intuition, our intuitive state. And so when that happens, we lose connection to our body. We go up into our head and we try to think our way through to the next relationship. And again, we can only predict the potential relationship based out of the past, right? Predicting the future based out of the past. And the mind honestly does a fairly poor job of that. Has no presence, right? We need to be present. The body is present. So by reclaiming our intuition, going back to an intuitive state, we can feel the relationship. We start to feel who's right, who may be wrong for us. We use that throughout the dynamic of the relationship rather than thinking our way through it. When we get heady, that leads to all other kinds of problems. We start to have trouble sleeping, you know, um, anxiety increases, depression increases. We have larger swings on our emotional state. So, right. So, let's do just a little breath work here to kind of align our channel to open us up before we kind of dialogue about this a little bit. So, what I want you to do is just kind of sit up straight. And for now, let's use mouth breathing in the beginning. So, we're going to breathe in through our mouth, out through our mouth. But, I want you to rotate as we do this. We're going to add a little physical function into this breath work. So, you're just going to kind of rotate like this. And what this does is it wakes up the spine. The spine is like this cord, this powerful cord within our body. And the more flow it has, the less tension it has. I believe it increases the entire energetic body. So we're going to add that little movement into our breath work here. So we're just going to start just rotating back and forth, in through the mouth, out through the mouth. Don't worry about the pacing right now or the timing. Just add that rotation. It's a little bit of a rotation. Keep going. Keep going. As you do this, let everything start to disappear, even my voice, just kind of align to your breath. You just keep rotating in through the mouth, out through the mouth, which is actually, honestly, mouth breathing is a little bit more of a stress type of state. But a lot of us are probably holding a lot of energy. And so we need to blow it out right now. So really move it out. If you really want to push that breath, you can. And as we're doing this, we're also creating connection and awareness into our body. Okay, now what I want you to do is keep doing that movement, but move the breath in through the nose and out through the mouth. In through the nose, out through the mouth. And start to slow the breath down a little bit. This moves the breath into more of a parasympathetic state, which helps us relax the nervous system. It's a recovery state. You just keep moving that spine. There you go. Back and forth, back and forth. Notice how it kind of relaxes the body. Let the tension leave your shoulders. Keep going. A few more. A few more. Good. Once you finish with a nice long exhale through the mouth. Little exercises like that are really powerful because they show us where we hold tension within our body. And as we create awareness to that tension in our body, it becomes like a superpower. I can use an example like, let's say it's dating, since we're talking about relationships a little bit this morning. You come into a room and there's an attractive person there that maybe you have interest in communicating with, talking with. And what will happen often is like our shoulders will come up, we'll be contracted because we get a little nervous. Our breath moves up into our throat. We're tight, we're stiff. And when that happens, it's actually going to be physically difficult to communicate. Your body is sending all these messages to the brain like, whoa, we're scared, we're tense. So by creating body awareness, we can feel that as our shoulders start to come up, as our breath starts to come up into our throat. We can relax everything, move it back down, create an open state. So I'm using like this, even opening up my shoulders. So I have a nice broad, open space. Which state do you think is going to create more opportunity for connection? A contracted, tight, shallow voice, or a relaxed, open, loose body and open voice? Obvious, right? The one that pulls people in towards you. And that's how you create magnetism within the room. And that's something we can talk about at some point too, or we'll talk about. So let's talk about this dynamic of the nice guy in relationships and why the girl typically doesn't want to date the nice guy. Why? Like you think, man, I'm nice. I'm such a nice person. Why don't girls like me? Well, you know, what that embodies is somebody who is typically highly empathetic. And empathetic means, they have a lot of empathy, a lot of awareness of the other, right? How they're perceived by the other. But in this dynamic, people can get too far on one end of the spectrum, right? And let me know if you can relate to this or if you experience this. You can put something like a Y in the comments and just let me know if you've been in that state. I know I have. I've been there before where I wanted to be perceived a certain way. And so therefore my focus and the feedback I was looking for was all focused on the other people. How was I being perceived? So the nice guy enters into a relationship dynamic, a potential relationship dynamic, and they become overly agreeable, right? Does that resonate? Does that sit with you? We become overly agreeable. So, the girl maybe asks, hey, do you want to go here for dinner? Sure, sounds great. Hey, this, yes, sounds great. Do you want to go for a hike? Sounds great. It's always yes, yes, yes. And what that message is really saying is, I'm so agreeable that even when I'm not in agreement, I'm not going to tell you. And there's the key, right? And so it's sending the message actually that I'm not safe. It's a form of manipulation, actually, right? They're so nice that they're using that niceness to manipulate, to get the things that they want. They just want to be perceived a certain way. And that's why in the other end of the spectrum, the bad guy, the bad boy or whatever gets the girl. And it's not because, they're bad or whatever. The reality is typically it's the type of person who's just more authentic. They'll share how they feel about something. And what it does is it shows us this dynamic or this spectrum of someone who's overly empathetic. So when you're overly empathetic, you're always focused on the other, always focused on the other. How am I being perceived? And actually what happens is we abandon ourselves. We lose ourselves in this. We're giving ourselves away because we're so focused on how I'm being perceived by the other. And again, it's creating that overly agreeable type of dynamic where I can't trust this person. I can't be trusted because they just agree to everything. And what are they actually feeling? Are they just going to leave me someday because they could build up so much resentment? They never communicated about it. Then they're gone, right? What are they really thinking? And then the other end of the spectrum, we have the narcissist. And the narcissist is all about me, right? There is no other. Everything revolves around me. So you have these strong ends of the spectrum where one person's overly focused on the other, and this end of the spectrum where the person is overly focused on the self. And so our goal is to be able to create range, to be able to move within that spectrum back and forth with ease. And also as like our normal resting place, to be right in the center, somewhere around there, to be balanced in these energies, right? And when the situation calls for it, we can move to one end of the spectrum or the other, but not to be stuck on one of these ends. And so the question becomes, how do I heal this? Because that's ultimately what it is. With the work I do, it's all around healing. And if that's an unfamiliar term to you, I get it, because it was for me too. I remember, someone bringing up like the idea of healing, and I was like, what do you mean? Like, I am healed. Like, I don't need fucking, to be healed. I'm good. But the reality was, as I did start to heal, as I started to heal core wounds, and I'll share what that means in a second, I started to feel a little bit better. And I remember, like, man, I do feel better. I have more ease within my body. I'm not scared about things as much. I'm not worried about how others are going to perceive me as much. And that felt good. And when that started to feel good, I wanted a whole lot more of that. And yeah, so typically the reason why somebody might be overly empathetic is because they were sent a message, typically during like childhood, developmental years, right? And what this message sent to them, or the way they received it, was, I have to earn all of my love, affection. It's not given to me. Just me as a whole is not enough. That's the key, like, phrase. I am not enough as I am. And so they pick that up sometime along the way. When I will unpack this with people, there's some ways you can kind of unpack it, but one of them, ultimately, it's going to be feeling into your body, connecting to the messages and stories you're holding within your body. And it might have been an example where you were hurt, and your father laughed at you, like, oh man, like, we don't suck it up, toughen up, right? And so then it makes you feel like, oh, I'm not enough. What does that message send to a child? I'm not enough. I can't just be held in this state. I can't be loved in this, broken or hurt state that I'm in. So I have to earn my love. So I start to overdo things, right? Become an overachiever. And then there's more and more of those type of examples go on throughout life. And you end up with an adult who is so concerned about the other that they lose themselves. And therefore it becomes difficult to be in relationship. And so, yeah, just love to hear how that resonates with you, if y'all relate. I mean, I went through some of these dynamics. I've had core wounds that led me to be overly concerned, overly empathetic. And, one of the remedies for somebody who is overly empathetic is to understand what's ours and what's the other, right? And when it comes to like emotions, situations in life, understanding what's ours and others might look like somebody throws something on you. They say something, they lash out at you. Typically and often, that emotion is they're a reflection of something they're already feeling, or an insecurity they hold. And it oftentimes has little to do with us. They're just seeing us as a mirror. They're reflecting back. We are reflecting back something to them that they're uncomfortable with about themselves, right? Or maybe it's a past wound that's being flared or ignited. And they put that on us. But if you're overly empathetic, don't have good boundaries, don't understand what's mine and what's the others, you'll receive it as, oh, this is me, right? Like, think about a child. Like, if you tell a kid, I have children, and if I tell my kids something, they'll often get upset, and I'm like, hey, dude, it has nothing to do with you. This just has something to do with like the actual situation. I'm actually saying, can you clean up your toys? I'm not mad at you. This doesn't mean that you're a bad person. But kids receive things that way because they're so delicate at that age, right? So they're so worried and concerned about their own role and where they fit in. So just kind of unpacking that, understanding that it actually oftentimes has nothing to do with you. And so if it does, own it. You'll stand up for it. You'll say, hey, that's my bad. I'm gonna take that one. I'm gonna own that one. If not, then we have to understand it's the other. We don't need to respond back to them or react back to them. The thing we need to do is to respond back to them. Do that through just communication and understanding that this person is just coming from their own space. But these are just some techniques, some tactics, some insights into the dynamics that actually play out within relationships or moving into relationships. It's really important that we get a better idea and understanding of who we are and how we want to show up in the world, and not to judge ourselves, because there's going to be qualities that we all possess that maybe we're not super stoked on, you know. Um, and don't beat her, and not to beat ourselves up over it, right? Just to accept it. So yeah, I'm like that, you know. For me, there's qualities, man, some things that are really helpful for me, that help me connect and create, expand, and do different things. Like at times, they're really beautiful. And also, those same qualities lead to burnout and frustration and, inadequacy, feelings of inadequacy. So, just accepting it and going, hey, yeah, this is how I am, and I'm going to work through things. I'm going to unpack things more, but I'm going to give myself peace. So through this, the message there is don't beat yourself up, right? Just understand yourself more. Be comfortable with yourself more. And if you are overly empathetic, you can even communicate that when move to a relationship. You can say, hey, I hold a lot of fear around abandonment. And it's because of this, right? And that's the best thing to do. Give an image to maybe why. And you kind of connect to that space. Because growing up, one of my parents left, or you know my childhood, or I've had past relationships where I was heartbroken, and just communicating that, and it's caused me to be a little bit over empathetic, a little extra agreeable. So sometimes maybe you can just check in with me. You can just ask if that's how I really feel about this, and that'll create empathy within the other, right? And you want to communicate through an empathetic space within the heart. That's the goal, is you both hold empathy for one another. Because we're all just humans, right? Just having this strange experience as we fly through space on a gigantic rock. So let's understand that at the end of the day, we're just trying to all figure it out. So I hope that helped. I'm going to hop on here more, and I'm just going to share more insights and details, because I think we can all benefit from this kind of stuff. I know I could have and have benefited from these things. So I'm just sharing. Again, my name's Troy. Much love for y'all. And until next time, peace.